Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and these are Charter Moms Chats. Today we have a special topic we're focusing on of school safety. And today on the blog, sachartermoms.com, we published a new guest post by the co-founders of SAFEtech. And so let me tell you about our guests. So Liza Gomez is in the middle of the screen, and then her colleague John Martin is on the far side of the screen. They are the co-founders and co-CEOs of SAFEtech. And so through there, we'll find out more about what they do, and they have a lot of expertise about school safety. And so there's lots of great stuff in the blog post. We want to also have a conversation about it. And school safety is a really stressful topic. It's something that I try not to dwell on, but it kind of weighs on me every time when I drop my kids off at school. I want to know that they're safe, that their teachers are safe, and I'm going to be able to pick them up at the end of the day, and everything's going to be okay, and they could just focus on learning and not worried about outside threats. So, SafeTech is trying to address that. So, well, let's find out more about SafeTech, and then they've got helpful information for parents so that we're all really big on advocacy at SHR Moms. So we want to arm you with the information so that you can go to your kids' schools and ask really good questions. So, okay, so let me ask Liza and John, can you talk more about the mission and vision of SafeTech?
Absolutely. First, I want to thank you, Inga, for allowing us to join onto your broadcast right now. We're excited to share information about SafeTech and the work that we're doing with our community and schools. SafeTech's mission is to transform school safety for a brighter future. And the way we're doing that is through a very ambitious vision, but that vision is within reach. And we're using innovative technology to streamline the emergency procedures that are happening on campus with a specific focus on lockdowns right now. And the way that we are doing that is we are using technology to streamline attendance so we understand where students are. We are also streamlining communication through a safe and effective manner between administrators, their staff, and also first responders. And lastly, we are gathering data reports on how schools are responding to emergency drills, specifically lockdowns, so that school safety teams can review those reports and can then make changes that are necessary to ensure that our students and our staff are safe on campus, and they can evolve their emergency procedures as needed.
Yeah, that's great. John, do you want to chime in, or that I have more questions I want to ask y'all?
No, Liza pretty much covered it. We're just trying to improve school safety through faster response on campus, and so we are both lifelong educators. This is where our passion is, and so we're just trying to improve in this field.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I want to ask you is both about your backgrounds, because there's lots of things happening in the school safety space, but y'all have particular knowledge, about problem solving that's going to be more practical. So, Liza, you want to go first and talk about your background and how that leads you towards having like so much to offer through SafeTech?
Yes, as John mentioned, education is definitely my passion. I started my career as a K-12 teacher. I worked at a middle school campus and a high school campus for a large district here in San Antonio. I did that for 9 years. I then received my graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania's Education Entrepreneurship Program that worked in partnership with the Wharton Business School. So it's a hybrid education and business degree. Since then, I've left the classroom, stay in touch with my friends who are teachers, so I still stay connected. And I have moved on to education business practices with a specific focus on systems level changes, education innovation, business operations, and really fusing education and business together. I currently work at a systems level where we are working to create systems. And so this lends itself to SafeTech, both as my connection is with education, but I also have those business practices. And of course, being that we're trying to bring SafeTech and make it a widespread safety issue for every campus, it allows us to really work on that systems level change that's needed to address safety in today's environment.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so John, your turn. Can you talk about your background and like how that gives you the knowledge to be really instrumental through SafeTech?
Yes, ma'am. So I graduated from the St. Mary's University and pursued teaching, right, education. And as I was teaching, I was actually going to graduate school to become a school counselor, because that's really where my passion was at. And so I did that. I was a teacher for 3 years. I was a counselor for 6 years. Then I excuse me, transitioned back um, to I'm sorry. I started off teaching at SST for 2 years, and so I came back as a dean of students in 2010. I'm sorry, 2016, and during that time as a dean of students, I had my role was campus safety. And so it really gave me a firsthand look into like the lack of resources that we had available. And you know, each year it was kind of the same. And during that time, I reconnected with Liza, and she connected me with the University of Pennsylvania's education entrepreneurship program. So I went through the same program as Liza, and really the big takeaway is problem solving. You know, how are we improving education? You know, not only in the next couple of years, but the next 10 years. You know, what's the landscape going to look like? And so, um, so that's my background. It's education all the way through. So.
Yeah, well, education entrepreneurship, I mean, that's speaking my language. Like you know, I never thought that my career would take me into anything related to education, but when I see like how creative the problem solving is in, especially in like, you know, schools like SST, like the open enrollment charter schools, like they're trying so hard to be responsive to what students and families and the community wants. But yeah, but like you said, there's limited resources, so you have to be smart about where to deploy those resources for people and budget. And you know, and that means like using entrepreneurial thinking, like, you know, making sure that all the inputs you put in are getting a good return, right? Everything's working towards the goal. So that, like, that's what to me is so exciting about education, especially in the school choice world. That it's taking a new mindset to solving problems in education. So yeah, and I'm excited to, you know, learn more about SAFEtech and you know, share about it on the blog and share it with our online community so people can think about school safety in a, you know, hopefully like a more positive, hopeful way. Like that there's, you know, there's problem solving strategies, um, you know, that can work. And actually that was, I think, oh, hey, we have a comment, Mr. De Leon from SST. He says, SAFEtech is such a timely product to keep our children safe in these uncertain times. Thank you, Abel. Well, let me ask, so one of the things I think is really helpful about the blog post is that, I think, Liza, you mentioned this before we went on the air, that there actually is a lot happening behind the scenes, but that parents may not be aware of, like that there are agencies and organizations that are trying to help schools become safer. But you know, but the parents don't see these things and don't know these things are happening. So I don't know, Liza, can you comment first, and then maybe John, like talk about like what I'm talking about is like the let's see, the acronym is TXSSC, right? So the Texas School Safety Center, and then also ESC Region 20, right? So these are acronyms that parents don't know, but actually have a pretty big impact on what's happening in schools.
Yeah, so we understand that safety is at the top of every parent and caregiver's mind, along with our community as well. And while there's a lot happening on individual campuses in regards to making sure that safety for students and staff is at the top of the priorities, there's also a lot going on in the background. So legislation itself has been changing pretty quickly, especially with funding that's being reallocated to school safety in light of the tragic events of Uvalde and other tragic events across the country. So this has been in the works for a while. In order to make sure that our schools are as safe as possible, we as a community, as a state, as a country, have established different organizations that are specifically addressing this. And so when we wrote the blog post, we wanted to make sure that our parents know that behind the scenes, there's a lot of work going on to keep your children safe. And so there's a number of organizations directed towards school safety. There's funding being reallocated. And then there's companies like what John and I are building is, as former educators ourselves, having experienced life as a teacher, John as a counselor, a teacher, a school safety personnel, we're working to make sure that schools are as safe as possible for our children, for our staff. Our families go to schools every single day, whether you're an adult or you're a child. And so there's just a lot of work going on behind the scenes. And with John being directly involved on a school campus and the role that he plays, John can talk more specifically about the Texas State School Safety Research Center, along with Region 20's work as well.
Right. So Texas State Research Center is a gem for safety on school campuses. They are responsible for really serving as a clearinghouse for disseminating safety security information through research, technical assistance for K through 12 schools and junior colleges in Texas. So I'm constantly on their website looking at guidance. They, the information and guidance they give stretches from maybe what to do in a fire drill, right? What are our procedures in place? How many times should we conduct fire drills? How many times should we conduct lockdown drills? Should we change the procedures in our current methods? And so not only do they provide the guidance, but they also reevaluate what safety looks like each year to either improve or if they need improve if they need to. Region 20 serves as um, there's 20 service agencies in Texas. Region 20 is one of them, and basically they help navigate schools through questions or give them guidance on how to um, um, go about better school or student performance and operations, how to become more effective. So they're valuable resources for the campuses, and those are two that we lean on pretty heavily. Probably, I don't want to say every day, but it's frequent. Anytime we have questions, usually Texas State School Safety Center has answers, and Region 20 has the answers as well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. That gives more context. I hope it gives families some peace of mind knowing that yeah, like Liza said, there are changes in legislation. There are that were proposed for the session coming up. There's funds being reallocated in different ways. So let's see. Oh, or another message from Abel. He says, "I love that this product has been created by educators for educators. That can be a big help in terms of usability. Who knows better than teachers what supports they need to keep students safe?" So I strongly agree. Liza or John, do you have a reaction to Abel's comment?
I do. SAFEtech was actually created as a brainchild between John and I. We met one day when we reconnected. John was working on his application for the University of Pennsylvania, and I had just had a fire drill as a teacher. My campus had just gone through a fire drill. John had just run a lockdown drill. He had run a drill as an administrator. And the exact same day, and we met, and we were both frustrated with how it was run, and just that we have technology that's available that's just not being utilized. And so it was through those frustrations, through those pain points that we identified as users of emergency procedures that SAFEtech really came to be. And being that I came from the teaching field and John comes from that administrative field, we're really able to put our powers together to create SAFEtech. But John, I'd love for you to talk more about at the University of Pennsylvania, the focus groups that you ran, and the surveys you ran all over the country with educators as well.
Right. So going into the program, I really wanted to find out, how big is this need? Is it just exclusive to schools in San Antonio? Is it exclusive to charters? Do ISDs have this issue? What do other educators? What are they going through? And as I began conducting surveys, focus groups, interviews, there was a wide response that this is an issue, not only for schools in Texas, but across the country. And the response was overwhelming that this is needed. School safety needs to be improved. There needs to be better ways of communication. We have the technology. It's just no one's really taken the time to really implement it into this field. And so, and not only was that the response, but the reaction was, pretty overwhelming as well. When they're like, "Oh, like you're working on this, or what are you going to do with it?" And it went from like a relief to excitement. Like, okay, keep and encouragement, keep working on this. Like, and so I think most educators feel the same way. They need more support in this area of school safety and security, um, and we're really just trying to address those gaps in what we're doing or what's already out there right now. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't actually. So I kind of want to go on a little tangent here, but I remember when I was first talking to you guys, and you were trying to describe the product. Like, could you kind of explain like a scenario where like better technology makes a campus safer? Like, I remember. So like Liza, you mentioned that like attendance, like knowing like which kids are in which classroom, and then so that if there is an issue, you know where people are, and then once it's during the event or once it's lifted, like being able to communicate with particular teachers and tell them what's going on and get the updates out there, and then afterwards being able to like, you know, look at the data that shows what happened and figure out like, oh, well, there was a mistake here. We can do better next time. Like, so I mean, if y'all could kind of describe like, what's a scenario that, where, better technology make things work more smoothly and keeps kids safer on campus.
Yeah, I'll simply start with education is one of the last industries to make a full transition to the full use of technology and how it can create more efficient practices. But I'm actually going to turn this one over to John. We're pilot testing right now on campuses. And so John has seen firsthand the difference in using regular pen and paper response to emergency drills and implementing SAFEtech and what the feedback has been from teachers and what that change has been. So John, I'll let you share that difference.
Right. So to walk you through a scenario, in the event that there is a potential threat on near campus, that gets reported to an administrator. The administrator can log on to the SAFEtech platform and simply by hitting the press of a button, of a lockdown emergency, notification is sent. A text notification is sent to 911 that they're in a lockdown and it's a real threat. That same text is also sent to staff. So we're web-based, so whether they're on their laptop giving an instruction or they receive the text message on their phone, they receive that notification. Once they log into the platform as, excuse me, as a teacher, and they're able to submit their attendance and give the head count of the students in class and also relay information. And this is all streamlined to administrators. So in the event, let's say a teacher has 20 students and one student left to the restroom, they can submit the 20 students and I'm missing one, give the name of the student. Let's say in this case is John Martin, he went to the restroom. So the administrator on duty knows that John Martin's out of class, not accounted for. And so once all the students are accounted for in the summary of the drill, the administrator can then close out the drill, and that notification is sent to all staff as well that the lockdown has ended. Once the lockdown ends, there's a summary report of when it began, when it ended, and when teachers submitted attendance. So in the event that, let's say, one teacher is maybe the last one to submit, after 3-4 drills, then the conversation of like, hey, do you need any help with anything? What's going on? You kind of troubleshoot that to try to reduce that response time. So you could constantly make improvements. So that's in a nutshell how the platform works. Yeah.
I think that like adults, like parents who are tech savvy, probably assume that that's how it already works, but not realizing that, like Liza said, sometimes schools are later to adopt technology than other industries, and so it creates this gap between what outsiders are expecting will happen, and then like the reality is like it's like, wait, people are still doing that with pen and paper, like that's not efficient, and that creates a safety issue.
Yeah, prior to, I believe it's this year, I've seen that there have been changes in the way that schools are operating these procedures. But even just last semester, we're talking about, spring of 2022, to indicate student attendance, you would put a piece of construction paper on your window and it was color coded. Red meant you're missing students, green means all your students are on campus. That was for a lockdown specifically. And during that time, teachers were also disconnected. So they couldn't really, unless they were texting their other staff or principals on their cell phone, there really wasn't an ability to communicate effectively. So with SAFEtech, we've really moved both of those to an online platform, especially the communication. So if John's an administrator and he's looking for a student and he's reaching out to me, he can send me a message, Ms. Gomez, you said your student went to the restroom. Do you know which restroom they went to? And that way they can then send a safety school team member to go locate that student. So again, we would assume, yes, Inga, that technology has taken over, but unfortunately, sometimes schools are later adopters, and so SAFEtech gets to step in at this point and be a solution for that. But it's more than that. It's really just doing what's best for our campuses and streamlining as much as possible so that it's a quicker response time.
Yeah. So, well, John, it was really helpful the way you sort of narrated, like, okay, these are some of the steps that happened in a drill or in a lockdown. Like, and actually, that's one of the things I think is really valuable in the blog post is that y'all describe, you give kind of prompts of like, like questions and and so for example, like a family could ask, well, like, what do you do in a drill? Like, that's a legitimate question that a parent or caregiver could ask an administrator. And they maybe gives the family some peace of mind, and depending on the age of the child, they can come home and report like, oh yeah, we had a drill today. This is what happened. And did they feel scared about it? Did they feel and I know we don't have time in the interview to go over all the points, but I just encourage everybody, like, go check out the blog post. It's like there's a lot of really helpful information and it's constructive. And for someone like me who's kind of a worrier, this it helps to like have a list and things to ask. But what are some points like in that list that y'all would highlight that are things that like parents and caregivers can ask and maybe nudge like their schools towards having better procedures and more transparency.
One is definitely, how do we report suspicious activity? What platforms are being used? What do schools currently have available? Do they plan to change that platform and improve? Also, how often are emergency drills conducted? Depending on the drill, it may be conducted once a semester, or it may be conducted, twice or three times a semester, depending on the drill. And so the guidance is fluid, every year, every couple years. So staying in the loop with how many times the school is conducting drills is important. I'm sure parents get maybe a email or a text message after a drill is conducted. And so it's good to know that, okay, like if they ran one this month already, like let's say a lockdown, and another one is you get another email about a lockdown, you know, that may be something to look into, right? Was this planned, or was this a possible threat? Also, is staff trained? How often are teachers trained, and what kind of training do they have? So most schools, there's before school kicks off, there is safety training, but do schools or does the campus revisit that training every quarter or every semester? How often is that available for teachers to, are there references, school safety references that they can look at, literature they can look at to stay updated as well? So those are important questions to ask to either school leadership, or maybe if it's posted on the website, they can look at that. But those are important questions.
Yeah. Liza, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, on top of that, really just talking to your child, letting them know. So as John mentioned, some schools do have platforms where they can report suspicious activity, but it's also just the relationship building that a student has with their teacher, feeling comfortable to go and approach them and take it to them. At the same time, if they're not comfortable telling the teacher, if they do tell you as their caregiver, you feeling comfortable enough to go to that campus and just let them know what your child has said, what they've stated. It's always better to play it safe than sorry. So just that strong communication with your child can go a long way in these situations.
Yeah, yeah. I know. So in my family, when my son was younger, so he's on the autism spectrum, and even like fire drills would be just really disturbing to him. Not so much that he was afraid of fire, but just like changing the routine was really stressful for him. So that's like even if they weren't notifying all the families that there was a fire drill, sometimes like the special ed coordinator would send me a message and say, just Nicholas might be a little stressed out today. Like we had the fire drill. Like they would give him like pipe cleaners to play with, so that was sort of his fidget, like to help alleviate the anxiety. Because yeah, it impacts kids in different ways, and but as Liza said, relationships are really important. So if a child has a teacher that they trust, or or being able to talk to their parents and say, this is what happened at school today. This is how I felt about it. Having those channels of communication, and like John said, having a reporting mechanism so either the student or a parent can contact the school and say, hey, I heard about this and I'm disturbed about it. Can you look into this? This might be a safety threat. That can keep us all safer. So, well, that's really helpful. I encourage people to go to the blog post and look at. There's a whole list of points, and for me, it helps calm me down because I feel like this is such a broad topic, and then to have like concrete things to hold on to is really helpful as a communication tool. And y'all have experience, in the real world, like as educators and administrators, following these procedures and trying to keep kids safe. So I want to make sure that people know how to contact you guys and how to keep in touch with SAFEtech. But I'm not trying to rush you. If there's any more key points or things like takeaways that you want parents and caregivers to hold on to from this, go ahead.
I think it's really just being as actively involved in the process as possible. Sometimes our parents feel that, okay, school safety, our schools handling it. Yes, they are, absolutely. You've just learned about Texas State's School Safety Center. Region 20 also has the School Safety Collaborative. So yes, that's occurring, but your involvement on the campus as well is important to the safety of students. And never feel shy to reach out to your administrators, your teacher, and just kind of double check on what those procedures look like. At the same time, know that there are companies, we're not the only one that's in this industry right now. So there are outside companies that are bringing innovative technology onto school campuses to ensure school safety. This is really a robust landscape right now in that everyone is doing their best to make sure that our students are as safe as possible. On top of that, our local law enforcement is also playing a very active role, and many school districts have hired school safety officers with real world experience, either in the military or law enforcement. So there's really an intentional effort going into school safety right now.
Yeah.
No, I like to echo the same thing, and so there's a lot of improvement that's been made, and so we just hope that we continue to improve, right, and we don't stay stagnant, in the next couple of years. We continue to improve, and in this space and in this field, competition is great. We support other companies that that have the same mindset and just want to make school safer, want to do the best job they can for the students and for their children. And so we're in support of school safety, whether it's another company or just boots on the ground. So
yeah. We have another comment. Mr. Tanner, he says, thank you. Oh, he's thanking me for bringing up different aspects of education. Well, it's my pleasure to do that. And I'm really assisted in that by having, local experts like John and Liza from SAFEtech. So it's like, I have this platform, but I really depend on experts to share, what families need to know. And it's always changing, but, I really wanted to have more information about school safety and in a constructive way. Because it's been kind of a scary year, and it's been ongoing in Texas, right? Like there was a shooting in Santa Fe, Texas, a few years ago, and it's just there've been threats against schools, and I worry about copycat behavior, but like we need to be aware of what's happening, but we also don't want to encourage students to act out in that way. So it's just it's a tricky issue, but I'm really grateful for the guest post and to be able to have a conversation with you all to share, constructive information so like families can go out there and, ask these questions and, get that information for themselves, but also like kind of nudge and encourage the schools to move in positive directions of like using more technology to keep students safe. So, well, so what's the best way for folks to keep in touch with SAFEtech?
We have a website. We encourage you to sign up for our waitlist. Our waitlist obviously is really aimed at educators, but through the waitlist, you can also receive information on the updates for SAFEtech. So the release of services, the release of being able to purchase SAFEtech for lockdown purposes as well. So parents can also receive those updates so that they can, if they wish, they can take it to their school and bring that information to them as well. We're also on LinkedIn. And then lastly, we're on Facebook. And so we'll be a lot more active on social media. As we mentioned, we're currently pilot testing on select campuses at the moment. We will be expanding testing next semester. And so if you're an educator listening and you'd like for us to test on your campus, we're looking for more test areas to run SAFEtech as well, and you can sign up through our waitlist for that.
Well, that's really exciting. Okay, so for folks who are, if you're on the podcast and just have the audio, so it's SAFEtech, that's SAFEtech.company. So, so a new type of top-level domain, so SAFEtech.company. But there's links in the blog post as well. So if you just go to sachartermoms.com and look for the most recent blog post, you can find all the links to, so go to the SAFEtech website, fill out the form, and then that gets you on the wait list so you get the updates about SAFEtech. So, well, thank you all both so much. Thank you for the guest post. Thank you for the conversation. I feel reassured that there's, like John said, there's lots of different solutions, in the school safety space. But I'm really grateful that y'all broke it down for us and helped explain it in a way that's, what parents need to know to advocate for school safety.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inga, for allowing us to be on the show. We're happy to respond to questions. So if they also want to connect with one of us through LinkedIn, or they can email us via our website, we'd be happy to answer additional questions.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Liza. And best wishes for SAFEtech to keep growing. Good luck with the pilot programs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care.